3.2a, effective surveys. We're going to cover part 1. So we're going to cover sampling, bias, and reliability. So surveys collect data from people. They need to be fair or unbiased. Okay, same thing, unbiased is fair. And the people answering the survey, so the respondents, need to represent the general public. Okay, it needs to be a good representation. Surveys can collect factual data, but they can also be subjective. Okay, so what subjective means is like it can also have an opinion. Okay, so what is a sample? So a sample is a group of items or individuals chosen to represent the total population. If the sample is, we say, too small, the results may not be reliable. Okay, if the sample is too big, the survey may be costly and difficult to administer. Okay, so difficult to administer. So if you think about if you're like, oh, I want to survey every single person in Canada. Well, it's going to cost a lot of time. It's going to cost a lot of money. And then also it's very difficult. Right? So representative sample, a sample that is typical of an entire population. So if the sample is not representative, it is biased. And the results are invalid. Okay, and sampling techniques. When selecting people to sample, you want to be as fair and as random as possible. Fair and random, while still being representative of the population. Random, in this case, means that every member of the population has the same chance of being selected. Okay, the following are main techniques for creating a sample from the population. So, simple random sampling. This is when individuals are chosen randomly from the entire population. So this is like putting a name into a hat and drawing one at random. Okay, stratified sampling. People are grouped usually by a common trait, and a few individuals are selected from each group. Okay, based on the same proportion. This ensures a fair sampling of the population by requiring that people be grouped first by some element. Okay, so an example of this is if you want to know the theme of a school dance, the last 10% of every grade. So the common element would be the grade 9s, 10s, 11s, and 12s. And then the proportion would be 10%. So note a percentage means that the people chosen is proportional. Okay, now there's cluster sampling. People are organized into representative groups, and one entire group is chosen. Rather than grouping by trait, clusters are designed to be representative, and then an entire group is selected. This method can be costly to set up. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that goes on in order to ensure that those clusters are fair. So McDonald's wants to know how their employees like working there, so they go to the, Main Street, and put whatever street, maybe like your local one, McDonald's, and ask every employee in order to represent all McDonald's employees in Hamilton. Okay, so the clusters would just be each McDonald's in Hamilton, and then they just choose one and survey them all. Systematic sampling. People are lined up, like virtually, and And the first person is randomly chosen. So first person. Okay, and then every nth person is selected after that. So an example of this is like a school of 2,000 people. If they want to survey 100 people, so a 100-person survey wants to be conducted, what you want to do is you want to do the 2,000 divided by 100, so every 20th person. So step 1, computer system draws the first person at random, and then step 2 would be every 20th person is chosen after. Okay, convenience sampling. I think this is the easiest one. Individuals who are easy to sample. Friends, family, classmates, people outside of a store, people walking into or like by the cafeteria. Okay, it's just at a convenience. So Good Life Fitness sets up a booth to sample people about the number of hours per week that they work out. They set up a booth in the mall and ask anyone who walks by. That's pretty convenient. So this could have some bias behind it for sure. Okay, volunteer sampling. Participants volunteer to be included in the sample. For example, mail or online or a text message. Okay, so a radio talk show asks listeners to call in and complete a survey. So only listeners that actually want to do this will call in. And this is usually listeners who feel very strong for or against the topic. Okay, so there's a bias there. Okay, volunteer, a lot of us will get a text message or an email, or maybe when we go into a store, we get something at the bottom of our receipt saying go online and fill out this questionnaire, right? That's a voluntary as well. Okay, I'm going to attempt to actually type this, which is not the easiest thing on this program, but okay, example 1. A school has 200 grade 9s, 300 grade 10s, so these are grouped, right? Let's go 150 grade 11s, and 250 grade 12s. Okay, so this is total. The school wants to conduct a survey about cafeteria food and preferences. Let's create an effective survey with each of the each type of surveying below. So, simple random. Okay, so what we can do here is we can list all of the students in this school's database in order and number them. And then what we can do is choose, let's go 10% at random. Okay, so that would be our first one. Okay, now stratified. Okay, so let's still base it on 10%. To survey on 10% of the student body, we would survey 20 grade 9s, 30 grade 10s, 15 grade 11s, and 25 grade 12s. Okay, so for cluster sampling, again, this one's a little bit biased, but we can choose to survey one class from each of grade 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, and when we survey one class, so like our clusters would be just like maybe the homeroom class, okay, like period 1. And when we choose that, we would choose to survey one, let's go entire class, just to remember. Okay, systematic sampling. Just back to cluster sampling. Each class would represent their entire grade. Okay, so that would be like their opinion. Each class's opinion would represent their entire grade. Okay, now systematic sampling, there's two parts. Number one, list all of the students in the school and choose the first student at random. Okay, and then what we want to do is there is 200, 300, 150, and 250. That's 1,000 students. So if we want to survey 10%, which is 100, it's every 10th student. So survey every 10th student after the first one. Okay, convenience sampling, we can actually do the cafeteria because that's what we want, cafeteria food preferences. Stand in the cafeteria and ask people who walk in to complete the survey. Okay. Use the first 100 people. Because after the first 100, you're like, okay, I'm done. That was easy. Okay. And last, volunteer sampling. Okay, what you can do is like you can put a ballot box. Or you can put like the surveys in the CAF or in the forum, whatever you want. And have students go up and fill out the survey if they choose to. Data, you must be critical of the source. Is it coming from a biased location or someone trying to sell you a product? Okay, data from a government agency is usually more reliable. So let's take a look at example 2. Determine whether the following sources would be for or against the topic. So if we have this topic, the benefits or drawbacks of drinking milk, okay? So specifically drinking milk. So if you received a pamphlet from an animal rights group that opposes dairy farming, if they oppose dairy farming, they're going to be against it. So they may highlight negative aspects. Whereas Canada Food Guide, produced by Health Canada, may be for it or neutral. Okay, because there is a group in the Canada Food Guide that has milk in it. Okay, next topic, the effects of logging. So logging is cutting down trees. Okay, the effects on the population of a species of bird. So if you get a pamphlet from a wildlife protection organization, they're going to obviously want to protect birds. They're going to be against logging. But if you get a pamphlet or something from a forestry company or advertisement, well, they're obviously advertising forestry, so they're going to be for, right? So the information that you're going to get from these two different organizations is going to be a little bit different. Now, last topic, possible complications of flu shots. If you are on a website run by a group that opposes, so that's against immunizations, versus the Ministry of Health website. Okay, the Ministry of Health says research shows this, and obviously they're going to be more of a neutral stance, especially if it's government-based, they're going to say all the pros and the cons. Okay, bias. So let's talk about bias. This is an unwanted influence on a sample that prevents it from being representative of the population. It's based on the way questions are asked. For example, wording of a survey questions and or interpretation and presentation of survey results. Okay, so it's the way you word it and the way you present it. For example, listen to this statement. We harm, well that's bad, the planet when we use pesticides. So there's that connection on our lawns. Should the government ban all residential pesticide use? Well, it's telling you right before it's harmful. So obviously you're going to say, well, yeah, we should ban it. We should save the environment. That's morally and socially correct. But that question would be biased. Okay, do you prefer the use of poisonous pesticides or natural gardening methods? Again, poisoning versus natural, poisonous versus natural. Okay, so if you're choosing, well, obviously you're not going to say, I love poison, right? So just like the connotation behind the wording, it makes it biased. A town has a population of 20,000 people. The town councillor conducts a vote at a public meeting about constructing a new ice hockey rink. Okay, so let's talk about this. 50 people attend the meeting out of 20,000, so not many. Okay, and if you think about it, these are probably people who want the rink, who feel very strongly for or against the rink. Let's go with that. Okay, 40 of the people at the meeting vote in favor of the hockey rink. So the council decides to build a hockey rink since 80% of the people support the data. So if you go 40 divided by 50, you get 80%. 80% of people in support. But let's read A. What percentage of the meeting votes for the rink? Well, 80%. So, but what percentage of the people in the town actually attended the meeting? Well, it was 50 over 20,000. So if we divide this, we get 0.123. So this is 0.25%. So not even 1% of the population. So is the sample representative? I'm going to say no. This is not representative. Not enough people. I'm going to put PPL. Not enough people attended or voted. Okay. And the other thing is people, let's go strongly, for or against, most likely attended the meeting. Okay, example 4. People walking by the mall were asked, we harm the planet when we use pesticides on our lawns. Should the government ban all residential pesticide use? Okay. Will the survey results be valid? No, because of and we call this like a loaded question. Okay, so let's just highlight the words. The word harm. Okay, so they're connecting harm with pesticides, so that's difficult. Okay, so how can this be improved? We can leave out the first part completely, and we can just say, should the government, and we can even, instead of just ban, we can just say allow or ban, because then it's neutral. It's giving two options, right? Allow or ban, all, and we don't have to put all, just in general, residential, pesticide, use. I also think like the word all is very, very forceful. Like it's very aggressive. Like all of it, no matter what, no questions asked, right? That kind of connotation behind it. 5. About 4,000 people visited a large sports equipment store during an annual sale. The store surveyed 100 customers after they paid for the purchase. An employee recorded their answers. So, number 1, this is the question. Good sports equipment can greatly improve performance. Okay, again, loaded question here, right? Obviously, you want your kid or you want your nephew or your niece, your students, to improve their performance. So how much would you spend on equipment each year? And then there is just numbers here. Okay, and how much do you earn per year? So why are the results going to be invalid? Okay, so this is a loaded question. People are obviously going to oversell themselves. Well, I care so much about my kids that I'm going to spend more than $1,000. Okay, so this is going to bump it up. Now, how much do you earn a year? This is a very personal question. So people might lie if they don't earn a lot. It's like also a pride question, right? So people may lie and say more. Arrow up. Okay, so how can they be improved? Number one, take out the loaded question. Oop. Take out the loaded words. Okay, so just that first sentence. Essentially, how much do you spend on equipment each year? That's it. Take this out. And then number two, maybe leave out. I don't know why this is relevant. Or you can put no name associated, like name at the top. Okay, to assess the survey, this is what we should be asking. Okay, is the sample size large enough? Okay, so 100 out of 4,000. If we think about this, it's 1 out of every 40 people. That'd be 2.5%. I would kind of like to see a little bit more. Maybe more people. Like 10%. Did I do this wrong? No, that's right. Okay, is the sample representative? I would say no, too little. But totally random. Oh, let's go. And only people that actually purchased. Okay, because it's like after they paid for their purchase. So it's not before, or it's not people just looking around and maybe coming back. Are there survey questions unbiased? We already answered that. And was the collection method appropriate? Well, here's the thing. An employee, I'm going to change colors. An employee recorded their answer. So that has to do with number 2. So this is number 3. So let's go to 4. Was it appropriate? No, because people are personal and may lie with an audience. So maybe it can just be like, oh, fill this out online, or fill this out and drop it in the box, right? Instead of an employee surveying them.